There is a part of you that you never show the world. A part that doesn't appear in your social media posts, your conversations, your friendships, or even your own self-image. A part you don't like to admit exists. A part you don't want to look at. A part you pretend isn't really there. Carl Jung called this part of you the shadow. And his idea was simple but terrifying. The shadow isn't just your darkness. It is the hidden source of almost everything you do, including the behaviors you think you chose consciously. Jung believed the shadow controls you without your permission. The shadow isn't a monster in the basement. It is the basement, the unseen foundation that your entire personality stands on. And Jung's warning was blunt. Until you confront your shadow, it will run your life from behind the scenes, and you will call it fate. So let's walk into that basement together. Not academically, not with bullet point definitions, but like a journey into the part of your mind that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Because once you understand the shadow, you will never look at yourself or anyone else the same way again. Most people think they are the person they appear to be. The good side, the reasonable side, the polite side, the calm side, the disciplined side. But Jung said that the person you project to the world is just a mask, a persona. It's your edited version of yourself. It's the image you've curated to be acceptable. But everything that doesn't fit this image, everything that doesn't match the you want to believe you are, gets pushed into the shadow. Your anger, your jealousy, your compulsions, your insecurities, your secret desires, your hidden resentments, your need for validation, your unspoken envy, your hunger for power, your fantasies, your cravings, your fears, your shame, your judgment, your impulses. All of it gets stuffed into the shadow. But here's the twist. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't stay silent. It doesn't sit quietly in the corner waiting for you to get your life together. No. It leaks. It leaks into your behavior, your choices, your relationships, your reactions. The shadow is the part of you refuse to acknowledge. And the more you deny it, the more control it gains. Jung said, what you resist persists, and what you repress becomes the puppet master of your life. Let me give you an example. Have you ever met someone unbelievably nice? Someone who never gets angry, never speaks up, never complains, someone who bends over backwards to avoid conflict. You think they're peaceful, but Jung would say, no. Their shadow is full of rage they refuse to admit. And because they refuse to face it, that rage comes out sideways. It comes out as passive aggression, as resentment, as bitterness, as sudden emotional outbursts, as shutting down, as self-sabotage. That's how the shadow works. Anything you hide from yourself becomes stronger. It's like pushing a beach ball underwater. You can keep it down for a while, but the moment you lose focus, it explodes upward. Your shadow wants expression. And if you don't consciously express it, it expresses itself unconsciously. Jung says every admirable trait has its opposite hidden in the shadow. If you pride yourself on being independent, there is a hidden part of you that fears dependence and secretly longs for it. If you pride yourself on being rational, there is a part of you that is deeply emotional and vulnerable. If you pride yourself on being moral, there is a part of you capable of impulses you would never admit to. If you pride yourself on being confident, there is a fragile part of you terrified of being insignificant. Your shadow contains all the parts you reject. And the more perfect someone tries to appear, the bigger their shadow truly is. Jung said that evil isn't in bad people. Evil is in people who refuse to accept their potential to do harm, because they project their shadow outward and attack others for qualities they secretly fear in themselves. This is where projection happens. Projection is when you see in others what you refuse to see in yourself. If you hate arrogant people, look closely. You might be hiding your own arrogance. If you can't stand controlling people, you might fear your own desire for control. If you're disgusted by needy people, you might be denying your own emotional needs. Projection is the shadow's favorite tool. It makes you blind to yourself and hyper-aware of everyone else. The shadow whispers, "It's not you, it's them." And so you become unconscious of your own darkness. But here's the more disturbing truth. The shadow isn't just your dark urges. It also contains your suppressed potential. Not just weakness, but strength you're afraid of. Not just shame, but power you don't trust. Not just fear, but ambition you're scared to unleash. Jung said the shadow includes your golden shadow, the version of you that is powerful, talented, bold, creative, capable, but suppressed because it doesn't fit your self-image. A person raised to believe I must always be humble might suppress their leadership. A person raised to believe I must never be selfish might suppress their ambition. A person raised to believe I am not talented might suppress their creativity. A person raised to believe I must be strong might suppress their vulnerability. The shadow contains everything you could be, but are afraid to be. And that fear shapes your life more than you realize. So the real question is, how does the shadow control your behavior without your permission? Jung explains it like this. Since the shadow is unconscious, it manipulates you through instinct. You react instead of respond. You defend instead of understand. You judge instead of reflect. You get triggered instead of introspective. That's the key. Triggers are messages from the shadow. If something makes you disproportionately angry, that emotion is coming from the shadow. If you feel irrational jealousy, the shadow is signaling insecurity. If you overreact to criticism, the shadow is protecting a fragile part of your identity. Your shadow behaves like an emotional alarm system. Whenever someone touches something you haven't integrated, you explode, shut down, or withdraw. The shadow is not your enemy. It is your neglected self calling for your attention. So how do you integrate the shadow? Jung said it like this: the shadow becomes hostile only when it is ignored. He didn't say to destroy it. He didn't say to be positive. He didn't say to suppress it with spiritual bypassing. You integrate the shadow by looking at it, by acknowledging the parts of yourself you've been running from. If you're jealous, admit it. If you're insecure, admit it. If you're resentful, admit it. If you want validation, admit it. If you want control, admit it. If you want recognition, admit it. If you're afraid, admit it. The moment you admit these things, the shadow loses its power. Whatever you face becomes conscious, and whatever becomes conscious becomes manageable. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Facing the shadow is the process of taking back control. But the moment you start this process, something interesting happens. You begin to understand people more deeply. You judge less, you project less, you become less reactive, less defensive, less threatened by the flaws of others, less ashamed of your own humanity. Because once you see your own darkness, you see everyone else's with compassion. Jung believed integrating the shadow is the beginning of wisdom, because wisdom doesn't come from being good. It comes from understanding your capacity for both good and evil. People who integrate their shadow become grounded, solid, authentic, calm, unshakable, because nothing inside them is hiding anymore. Most people are chaotic because they are half blind. Half of their psyche is in the dark. It pulls them in directions they don't understand. But a person who faces their shadow becomes whole. Let me put it simply. Your shadow is the part of you that says the things you're afraid to say. It feels the emotions you try to suppress. It carries the pain you pretend you've healed from. It holds the memories you don't like to revisit. It absorbs the traits you don't want to admit. And it hides the potential you're scared to unleash. You don't become free by pretending the shadow doesn't exist. You become free by making peace with it. When you stop being afraid of your shadow, you stop being controlled by it. You stop being triggered easily. You stop acting out of insecurity. You stop projecting onto others. You stop sabotaging relationships. You stop hiding from yourself. Self-awareness increases. Self-mastery emerges. Strength appears where shame once lived. Jung believed that the greatest human transformation is not becoming positive, but becoming whole. To be whole means to stand with your light and your darkness. To know your flaws but not fear them. To know your impulses but not obey them. To know your emotions but not drown in them. To know your weaknesses, but not be ruled by them. That is the power of shadow integration. So if you want to understand yourself, if you want to understand your patterns, if you want to understand your triggers, if you want to understand your relationships, your reactions, your impulses, your insecurities, look into your shadow. It is not the enemy. It is the truth. And the moment you face that truth, you take the first step toward the most important journey a human can take, the journey from unconsciousness to consciousness, from fragmentation to wholeness, from self-deception to self-awareness, from shadow to self. Because the darkness inside you is not there to destroy you. It is there to complete you. And that is the real meaning of Jung's shadow theory. The dark side of you that controls your behavior without your permission will set you free the moment you stop running from it.